This is Sade. Welcome to our Freebie Friday video. Today we've been asked to talk about lease-to-own options in Texas, which is also called rent-to-own. And so in that situation, what happens is that the buyer might not be able to secure financing for about a year or two down the line, and yet they want to make sure that they have the option to buy the property where they already are in that property or about to rent, but they want to be able to have the option to purchase it in a year or two. And that's when people talk about rent to own or lease to own. And in Texas, it used to be that people would be able to do that for a long period of time, keep renting and renting and renting with an option at some point in the future to actually buy the property. Well, the law has cracked down on that, and the lawmakers have decided that the buyer usually is at a disadvantage. So they don't want people ripping off buyers and collecting money for years and then turning around and not selling them the property and just doing it over and over and over again, because usually the rent amount is higher than a normal rental rate because of that additional option that they've purchased. So the option fee is also on top of the rent amount, so that the buyers used to lose out by losing the option money, which is the option fee, and they also lose out on the additional rent that they were paying on top of their normal rent. And then typically they wouldn't be able to purchase the property because the sellers would find a technicality and tell them that they've broken the lease. So if you break the lease, then the rent-to-own agreement is also void. It's null and void. And that's what sellers that were unscrupulous and shady sellers used to do that. And the lawmakers decided that that was not a good idea. So what they've done is they put into effect a lot of different laws out there, which cannot be covered in a video like this, that those are the several things that the sellers must do in order to do a proper rent-to-own these days. And so the burden is on the seller to make sure they follow a lot of rules. And also the main thing for the buyer to know, I guess, is that whether you're a buyer or seller to know is that the lease period must not be more than 180 days anymore. So you can only do a rental agreement for 6 months, and the option expires after the 6-month period. So you could do it for 6 months, rent, and then you must decide whether to buy or not at the end of those 6 months, or your option disappears. And then the option fee still stays with the seller. So that's our review of lease to own in Texas. Is still doable, but it's very tricky, and you must get a lawyer involved to make sure everything is done right, especially if you're the seller, because the buyer has more power these days to be able to back out of the transaction completely. And you don't want to be put in a situation where you're paying back the buyer all the rent that they've paid just because of a technicality. So that's our quick tip on lease to own for you. And if you want to do a detailed review, contact a lawyer and do a consultation, and they should be able to help you and guide you with that. So 6 months, and you must rent only for the 6 months. You can still pay an option fee, and you will lose the option fee if you don't end up purchasing at the end of the 6 months. And that's just standard, and that's actually legal in Texas anyway. So that's how that works. And if you break the lease agreement, remember that also voids the whole rent-to-own agreement. So watch out for that as well. And we'll talk to you on the next video. Happy Friday.